Young and the Restless spoilers. Jill Abbott's unexpected return to Genoa City sent ripples through the quiet calm of the Abbott household. Her health had deteriorated significantly. A sudden and alarming decline in her cardiovascular health that had led her to face her mortality in ways she never had before. With her heart beating erratically and her energy waning, Jill realized time was a luxury she no longer possessed. But it wasn't just the state of her health that brought her back to the city she had tried to leave behind. She carried with her a pressing secretone that needed to be addressed urgently before it was too late. Her first stop was the Abbott mansion, where she found Billy sitting by the fireplace, lost in thought. He had become a different man since their last encounter, no longer the reckless troublemaker she remembered from his youth, but still grappling with personal demons. As Jill entered the room, Billy looked up, his expression unreadable. "Mom," he said quietly, rising to his feet. "What's going on? Why are you back?" Jill's face was pale, her lips thin with pain. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing against her chest. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, the determination in her eyes clear. "Billy, I need you to listen to me," she began, her voice trembling but firm. "I don't know how much time I have left, and there's something I need you to do before it's too late. I want you to become a better man for your own sake and for those who love you. I need you to take responsibility for your life before I'm gone." Billy paused, skepticism flickering across his features. His first instinct was to dismiss his mother's plea, thinking it to be another one of her manipulative schemes, a last-ditch effort to control him as she had done so many times in the past. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw something he had never seen before: weakness, vulnerability, and the terrifying reality of a mother who knew her time was running out. "You've never been one for ultimatums, Mom," Billy said with a wry smile. "What's this really about? What's going on?" Jill's eyes welled up, the tears she had been holding back now spilling freely. "I'm sick, Billy," she confessed, her voice breaking. "I don't have much time left. I want to see you succeed. I want to see you happy. Please, for me, change the course of your life. I've failed you in the past, but I want to make things right with you before I go." Billy's skepticism softened as he took in the raw emotion in his mother's voice. For the first time, he felt the weight of her words. The woman who had always been a pillar of strength was now broken, standing before him as a mother who feared she wouldn't live long enough to witness her son's redemption. Billy found himself at a loss for words, the tumult of emotions within him making it hard to breathe. "I'll think about it," he finally said, his voice quieter, more reflective than before. Jill nodded, grateful for his willingness to listen, even if just for a moment. But the real weight of her plan wasn't on Billy, it was on the woman she had been determined to bring into the fold. The next day, Jill saw out Sally's specter, a woman she had never quite understood, but had come to respect in recent months. Sally had been a part of Billy's life for some time now, and despite their complicated history, Jill knew Sally's heart was in the right place. Jill made her way to the design office, where Sally was busy working on her latest collection. "Sally," Jill began, standing in the doorway. "We need to talk." Sally looked up from her desk, momentarily surprised by the unexpected visit. "Jill," she said, her tone wary but polite. "What brings you here?" Jill stepped inside, her gaze steely, filled with a quiet resolve. "I need you to hear me out. Billy needs you, Sally. He needs someone who can help him find his way, someone who understands him better than anyone else. And I know you love him. He's a part of your heart, even if things are complicated right now. I'm not asking you to forgive him for the mistakes he's made, but I am asking you to help him change." Sally listened intently, her mind racing as she processed Jill's words. She had always been conflicted about Billy, torn between her feelings for him and the frustration of his reckless behavior. But Jill was right. Billy had potential, a chance at redemption, if only he could take the first step. "What are you asking me to do?" Sally asked, her voice low. Jill walked closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Help him see what I see in him. Help him become the man I know he can be. I know things between you two are complicated, But this isn't about you, it's about Billy's future. Help him realize what's at stake. You're the one person he listens to when no one else can reach him. Sally stood there for a long moment, considering Jill's plea. It wasn't an easy decision. Billy had hurt her, disappointed her, and yet Sally couldn't deny the depth of her feelings for him. Maybe this was the opportunity they both needed, an opportunity to rebuild. Not just for Billy, but for herself as well. I'll do it, Sally said finally, her voice firm. I'll help him, but he's going to have to meet me halfway. I won't waste my time if he's not ready to change. Jill nodded, a small smile of relief crossing her face. Thank you, Sally. I know this won't be easy, but Billy needs you now more than ever. He's standing at a crossroads, and he needs someone to help him see the path forward. As Jill left Sally's office, she felt a weight lifting off her shoulders. She had done what she could to guide Billy in the right direction. Now, it was up to him to take the first step. Meanwhile, Billy was grappling with the conversation he had had with his mother. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had been handed an opportunity to change, but the weight of his past mistakes felt heavy, suffocating. He had spent so much of his life running from responsibility, from the consequences of his actions, that the thought of facing them now seemed impossible. But the truth was undeniable. Jill's words had planted a seed in his mind, one that had begun to grow. For the first time in years, Billy felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he could be better. Maybe he could be the man his mother wanted him to be before it was too late. In the days that followed, Billy's internal struggle deepened. He wanted to be the man Jill believed he could be, but the fear of failure, of letting down those who cared about him, held him back. As he navigated his emotions, he found himself seeking solace in the one person who might be able to help him make sense of it all. Their relationship had always been a roller coaster of passion, frustration, and love. But now it was different. Now it was about something more than just them. It was about redemption, about change, about the future. As Billy faced his darkest fears and his deepest regrets, he realized that the only way forward was to confront his past and take responsibility for the choices he had made. And with Sally's help, he just might be able to do it. But the road to redemption was never easy, and Billy knew that the battles he faced would be far from over. What he didn't realize, however, was that the support of those who cared about him, including his mother and Sally, would make all the difference in his quest to become the man he was meant to be. And in that moment, Billy finally understood what his mother had been trying to tell him all along. It was never too late to change. The air in the Chancellor mansion was thick with tension, a heavy, suffocating blanket that seemed to mute the usual sounds of the sprawling estate. Outside, the wind howled through the manicured gardens of Genoa City. But inside, the silence was louder. The grand living room, usually a place of warmth and high society gatherings, felt more like a courtroom tonight. The crystal chandelier overhead was dimmed, casting long, sharp shadows across the portrait of Catherine Chancellor, whose painted eyes seemed to watch the scene below with a mixture of scrutiny and sorrow. Jill Abbott sat in her high-backed velvet chair near the fireplace. Though no fire burned in the grate, she gripped the armrests with white-knuckle intensity, her knuckles contrasting starkly against the dark fabric. She checked her watch for the third time in as many minutes. He was late, or perhaps he was stalling. She knew Cane well enough to know he didn't like walking into an ambush, and that was exactly what this was. But it was an ambush born of necessity, not malice. When the heavy oak doors finally creaked open, the sound echoed like a gunshot in the quiet room. Cane Ashby stepped inside, hesitating on the threshold. He looked different than the man who had once been an integral part of this household. Harder, perhaps. His suit was impeccable, a sharp charcoal cut that screamed power and money, a far cry from the more casual, approachable Cane of years past. He didn't walk in with his usual confident stride. Instead, his movements were measured, wary. "You summoned me, Jill." Cane's voice was low, carrying a note of forced politeness that grated on Jill's nerves. He remained near the door, keeping his distance as if the Persian rug between them was a minefield. I assumed it was an emergency given the cryptic message. Jill didn't rise. She simply turned her head, fixing him with a gaze that was equal parts imperious matriarch and heartbroken mother figure. It is an emergency, Cane. Just not the kind that requires an ambulance. Not yet, anyway. Cane sighed, stepping further into the room, but refusing to sit. He adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous tic she remembered from when he first came to town. I have a board meeting in an hour, Jill. If this is about the press release. Damn the press release. Jill's voice cracked like a whip, startling them both. She took a breath, struggling to compose herself, the anger drained out of her face, replaced by a sudden, stark weariness that made her look older, frailer. I didn't call you here to talk about press releases or stock margins. I called you here because I don't recognize you anymore. Cane stiffened, his jaw tightening. I'm the same man I've always been. No, Jill said softly, shaking her head. The Cane I knew, the Cane who was my friend, who was a father to those children, who honored Catherine's legacy, wouldn't be doing this. She gestured vaguely around the room, encompassing the legacy of the Chancellor name. We had a bond, Cane, a friendship that survived lies, paternity scandals, and everything this town threw at us. I look at you now, and I see a stranger. Cane's expression hardened. People change, Jill. Circumstances change. I had to evolve to survive. Is that what you call it? Jill let out a dry, humorless laugh. She leaned forward, the dim light catching the deep lines of fatigue etched around her eyes. I'm not going to mince words with you, Cane. I don't have the luxury of time for polite conversation anymore. Cane's brow furrowed, his defensive posture slipping for a fraction of a second. What do you mean? Jill took a deep breath, the admission tasting like ash in her mouth. My heart, she whispered, tapping her chest. It's not holding up as well as I'd like. The doctors are using words I don't care to repeat. But the gist of it is simple. I am running out of time. I don't have the energy for these endless wars, for the chaos you're bringing to my doorstep. Cane took a step forward, genuine concern flashing in his eyes. Jill, I didn't know. Is it how bad is it? Bad enough that I need to set my affairs in order? She snapped, cutting off his sympathy before it could soften her resolve. And part of that means stopping you from burning everything down before I go. She pointed a trembling finger at him. This vendetta against Newman Enterprises. This hostile, aggressive maneuvering you've been pulling with that AI software. It's reckless, Cane. It's not just business. It's destruction. You are dragging the Chancellor name through the mud by association. And I won't have it. Cane's face closed off again, the wall of the ruthless businessman slamming back into place. It's a strategic acquisition, Jill. It's necessary. Newman has held a monopoly on power in this city for too long. I saw an opening, and I took it. Catherine would have done the exact same thing. Do not dare invoke her name to justify your greed, Jill shouted, pushing herself up from the chair. She swayed slightly, clutching the back of the chair for support. Catherine understood respect. She understood that you don't go to war with Victor Newman unless you are prepared to lose everything. This isn't strategy, Cane. It's suicide. I have the leverage, Cane argued, his voice rising, defensive and desperate. The algorithm gives us an edge they can't counter. I'm doing this for the future, for my future. I was left with nothing, Jill. I had to build this back from scratch while everyone in this town looked down on me. Now that I'm finally winning, you want me to stop. You call this winning? Jill stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. Victor Newman doesn't lose, Cane. He waits. He bides his time, and while you're busy gloating about your quarterly projections, he has already found your weak point. Cane scoffed, turning away to look at the unlit fireplace. He has nothing on me. I've covered my tracks. He has you, Jill said, her voice dropping to a chilling whisper. He knows who you are. He knows your insecurities, your need for validation, the very things that drove you to do this. He's not going to attack your company, Cane. He's going to attack you. He's going to dismantle your life piece by piece until you have nothing left but that cold, empty office. She moved closer to him, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. You are damaging the legacy of this family. You are alienating the people who actually care about you. For what? To prove you're a big man? To prove you're not just the grifter who came to town all those years ago? The words hit their mark. Cane flinched as if she had slapped him. He turned back to her, his eyes blazing. I am not that person anymore. Then stop acting like it, Jill pleaded, her anger dissolving into desperation. Look at where you are going. You are walking down a path that ends in isolation. If you continue this war with Newman, if you continue to prioritize power over loyalty and family, you will lose everything you ever claimed to cherish. Lily, the twins, me, we can't follow you where you're going. The room fell silent again, the weight of her warning hanging in the air like smoke. Cane looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the frailty beneath the fire. He saw the woman who had once welcomed him as a son, now looking at him with the terror of a mother watching her child play in traffic. Jill, he started, but the words died in his throat. He wanted to tell her she was wrong. He wanted to tell her that he had this under control, that he was doing it for them. But the doubt, cold and insidious, had already begun to creep in. I'm warning you, Cane, Jill said, her voice barely above a whisper, her energy spent. She sank back into her chair, looking small against the velvet. Reconsider your path. Call off the attack on Newman. Make peace. Because if you force me to choose between protecting Catherine's legacy and protecting you, I will choose the legacy. And I will die knowing I failed you. Cane stood there for a long moment, the silence stretching out, heavy and unbearable. He looked at the portrait of Catherine, then at Jill, whose eyes were closed as she tried to catch her breath. The grand ambitions that had fueled him for months suddenly felt hollow. The victory he had been so close to grasping now looked like a trap. Without another word, Cane turned and walked toward the door. His footsteps were softer this time, less sure. He paused with his hand on the brass knob, looking back at the woman who had been his anchor for so long. She didn't open her eyes. He opened the door and stepped out into the howling wind, the chill of the night biting through his expensive suit. As the door clicked shut behind him, Cane Ashby stood on the steps of the Chancellor estate, alone in the dark, haunted by the realization that in his quest to become a king, he might have just exiled himself from the only kingdom that mattered.